What I was presenting today was an overview of prospects for the property market in Ireland based on research that we've been doing, looking at various different types of data from the CSO, from the property sector itself, from the Department of Environment, and so on. And basically what I was saying was trying to pull out six main points as to why I think the market will remain relatively weak in the years to come. The first one, of course, is that we're still unwinding, so prices are still on their way down until they level off and stabilise. Then clearly there's not going to be any growth, and it's pretty uncertain as to where that will be. Some people think the end of this year, some people next year, some people the year after, and clearly that will be affected by some of the other things I'm going to say. The second is in relation to the level of oversupply of property in the country. There's around 294,000 vacant units according to the census prelim results from 2011. Now, if we take out the holiday homes and the second homes from those, and we're left when we take out a base vacancy, so we'd always expect some housing to be vacant in the housing market. There's probably an oversupply of around 80 to 100,000 based on the number of households in the country. So we have an oversupply in relation to potential demand in terms of the number of households who could potentially occupy those. And clearly we have a number of these unfinished estates. There's 2,876 of these unfinished estates that have around 36,000 unoccupied or under construction properties on them that will come into the market at some point. The third issue is a relatively weak new demand, in that although we have a growing population, that growth is quite small. It's around 10,000 11,000 people a year, and it's been principally driven by natural increase through new births. And clearly new births, kids aged between 0 and 5 are not going to be buying anything anytime soon, another 20-25 years before they enter the housing market. And yet the group that we would hope would come into the housing market, the group aged between 20 and 40, they're the group that's principally emigrating. And net emigration over the last 2 years has been about 34,000 a year. So that new demand coming into the market is not necessarily there. On the existing people who are in the housing market, they tend to be locked. A lot of them are locked into the properties which they already own due to issues of negative equity or mortgage arrears. Around 1 in 3 properties, according to the central bank, are in negative equity. And until there's a growth in the price, they're not going to be able to move. So they're not going to be a functioning part of the housing market unless they're prepared to realise a loss. And so the further the market comes down, and we're 50%ish now, we're heading towards 60%ish, the more and more people get caught in the negative equity trap. And obviously that reduces mobility in terms of people being able to move to access new jobs, and obviously some people have kind of been locked out of the labour market through unemployment and so on. And then there is just the general economic conditions of the country, and also internationally. So if your economy is weak and there are people who are coming out of the labour market, and international sentiment is poor and so on, then your own domestic economy stays weak, which means your housing market tends to stay weak. They're quite well connected into each other, and until there is a kind of a turnaround in the economy, we can't. We're unlikely to see a turnaround in the housing market. And clearly, other people, it's very difficult to access credit. So even if you did want to buy a house, persuading a bank to actually lend you the money for you to be able to buy a property is significantly more difficult now than it was 5 or 6 years ago. And then finally, these are all feeding into general notions of confidence and caution. So, issues around what's NAMA doing, issues around some of the construction issues like Priory Hall or Pyra in buildings, issues around negative equity, mortgage arrears, price drops and so on, just generally reduce people's confidence in the housing market as something that they want to invest their own money in for a home, or they want to invest in terms of maybe thinking about their pension and thinking about buy-to-let. kind of schemes. So that will probably ebb away some of the confidence in people to actually go back into the market. And clearly, people are going to be a lot more cautious in terms of how they operate in the housing market. Given what's happened and given how catastrophic the price falls have been, nobody wants to get in and then find that they potentially lose money and so on. So those kind of things, all those kinds of things combined, generally mean we'll probably have a weak market for a number of years. Now, we would expect it to come back at, slowly at first, and probably principally in the cities. But in some places where the supply and the demand are out of sync with each other, it will probably take quite a bit longer for that to turn back round.